let me just ask you something straight up. In our nonstop, always-on world, aren't you feeling just a little bit drained? Kind of like your personal battery is always hovering in the red? Well, if you are, you're definitely not alone.
And look, this feeling of total exhaustion, it's not just in your head. It's a real thing that researchers are actually calling the human energy crisis. It comes directly from our modern work culture, right? The heavy workloads, the long hours, they just never seem to let up, and it makes it almost impossible to recharge.
But what if I told you there's a simple, scientifically backed tool to fight back? That's what we're going to dig into today, the micro break. Now, I'm not talking about your lunch hour here. This is a short, informal pause, 10 minutes or less, that you take between tasks specifically to get some of that energy back.
All right, so let's get into the science, because this is where it gets really interesting. The evidence behind these tiny breaks is surprisingly powerful. We're looking at a major meta-analysis, which is basically a study of studies. They took data from 22 different experiments to get the clearest picture possible of what these breaks actually do.
So what did they find? The results are, well, they're pretty fascinating. They looked at three main things. First, vigor. Think of that as your energy and your good vibes. It got a major boost. Second, fatigue. That went down significantly. But then you get to performance, and here's the twist. The overall effect was pretty much neutral. So you feel better, for sure, but do you actually work better? That's the real question.
Now this chart really puts some hard numbers to those effects. You can see these small but what we call statistically significant impacts on both vigor and fatigue. And all that means is that the effect is real. It's not a fluke, it's repeatable, the science is totally clear. These little breaks genuinely help you feel better. But that performance number is still just kind of sitting there, not really doing much.
So the big takeaway here is pretty clear, right? Micro breaks are a fantastic tool for just managing your own well-being. But that brings us right back to that million-dollar question. If they make us feel so much better, why don't they consistently make us perform better?
Okay, so let's tackle that performance mystery head on, because the story definitely doesn't stop there. It's not that breaks can't help your performance. It just turns out that how and when you take that break, well, that matters a lot.
So, how do we crack the code? How can we actually structure these short little pauses to not only make us feel good, but to also give us a real tangible boost in our work? Well, the researchers kept digging, and they found some really cool answers.
The first key factor is actually super simple. It's all about how long the break is. Even inside that little 10-minute window, the science shows that longer is better if you're looking for a performance boost. So yeah, a quick 30-second pause might make you feel a little bit better, but stretching that break out closer to the full 10 minutes is where you really start to see a bump in productivity.
And the second huge piece of the puzzle, it's about what you're taking a break from. If you're doing really intense, brain-draining work, a short break just didn't seem to move the needle on performance. But for creative tasks, there was a small, nice little boost. And for the more routine, clerical work, bam! That's where micro breaks hit the jackpot with a pretty decent performance jump. So, the more routine the task, the more a quick break helps you get back in the zone.
All right, enough with the theory, let's get practical. Now that we know the science, what can you actually do during your next 5 or 10-minute break to get the biggest bang for your buck?
You know, this might sound almost too simple to be true, but one of the most effective ways to totally reset your system is just to focus on your breathing. Just becoming aware of it can calm you down, sharpen your focus, and get you ready to perform at your best.
Here's the great one you can try literally right now. It's called 4-4-8 breathing. It's so easy. Just get comfortable, breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, and then slowly exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. If you just do that 3 or 4 times, it can totally calm your nervous system and clear your head.
And here's another awesome tool for your break. Just have a laugh. A really good laugh isn't just fun, it's like medicine. It gets your circulation going, it releases all those feel-good chemicals, endorphins, and it can literally soothe tension in your body. So go on, watch a funny video, tell a joke to a coworker, whatever works.
So we've seen how pausing for a few minutes can reset our energy, but what about the pauses that happen in just a split second? There's this fascinating idea called the 3-second rule, and it's not about taking a rest, it's about the very moment you decide to take action. And trust me, it can completely change how you think about making decisions.
Now to really get this, we're going to go somewhere you probably weren't expecting. Horse training. I know, sounds weird, right? What could the way a horse learns possibly teach us about how our own brains work? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot. Okay, so check this out.
Neuroscience shows our own brains have this tiny, natural 3-second window to turn an impulse into a choice before we start to overthink and second-guess everything. And the incredible part is, horse trainers have basically known this for centuries. For a horse to learn, the reward or the release of pressure has to come within 3 seconds of them doing the right thing. Any longer, and their brain just doesn't make the connection.
This little window is absolutely critical. It's the moment our brain, and yeah, a horse's brain too, decides, hey, was that worth it? Should we do that again? It is the absolute sweet spot between having a good idea and talking yourself out of it. It's where thought becomes confident action.
So, how do we tie all of this together? On one hand, you've got micro breaks, these small pauses to replenish your energy. On the other, you've got the 3-second rule, this tiny window of opportunity to take action. They're not separate tools. They're really two sides of the same coin, using small pauses to create a big impact. So let's put it all together. Here's your game plan. To fight that feeling of burnout, use micro breaks. The science is solid. They boost energy and cut down fatigue. To make them boost your performance, try to make them a little longer, especially when you're doing routine stuff. During those breaks, use simple tools like 4-4-8 breathing to reset. And finally, when it's time to act on an idea, remember that 3-second window. Just go for it and build that momentum.
Look, this isn't just some interesting theory. It's a tool you can use the moment this is over. That small, instinctive window between a thought and an action, it's opening and closing all the time. Your next one is just around the corner. So, how are you going to use it?